The O'Reilly Factor is on tonight.
Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
With thousands of poor people trying to get into America, what are we, the people, supposed to do? We'll have a new poll and commentary in the Talking Points memo.
Impeachment is a message that has to be sent to our president that we're not going to put up with this lawlessness.
Get ready for the Sarah Palin channel as the former Alaska governor enters the national media business. Will you buy what she's selling?
On the advice of my counsel, I respectfully exercise my Fifth Amendment right and decline to answer that question.
Also tonight, 2 emails released showing Lois Lerner saying very nasty things about Republicans. Hey, President Obama, that might be a smidgen. Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone. The Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. What do you think about the collapse of the southern border? That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. I use the word collapse because when the most powerful nation on earth cannot or will not stop people from illegally entering the USA, our system of border protection has collapsed. I mean, a few hundred illegal crossings are understandable, but 100,000 children this fiscal year alone? That's a catastrophe. A new poll conducted by the Public Religion Research Institute asked more than 1,000 American adults about the kids coming illegally to the USA. Question number 1. What should the U.S. do about the children who are currently arriving from Central America without their parents? 70% offer shelter and support while beginning a process to determine whether they should be deported or allowed to stay. 26% deport them immediately. 4% don't know. Second question, the U.S. should not allow children coming from Central America to stay because it will encourage others to ignore our laws and increase illegal immigration. 59% either completely or mostly agree with that statement. 39% either completely or mostly disagree with it. Final question, which statement comes closest to your view about how the immigration system should deal with illegal aliens? 58% allow them a way to become citizens provided they meet certain requirements. 22% identify and deport them. 17% allow them to become permanent legal residents but not citizens. Now, the poll shows a number of things. First, that Americans are a compassionate people. We want poor children to be treated humanely and fairly, even if it costs the taxpayer money. 2, most of us understand that not controlling our southern border is a magnet for illegal aliens. The hidden headline of illegal immigration is that not one president, not one, has even tried to seal the southern border. That's resulted in a massive amount of illegal drugs coming in here, as well as undocumented aliens. The reason the presidents have not secured the border is purely political. The Hispanic American lobby is powerful in the USA, and so is big business, which for years has used illegal aliens as cheap labor. After 9/11, you'd think the federal government would make it a top priority to stop people from coming here illegally because we just don't know who they are. And certainly terrorists have illegally entered the USA, as well as vicious criminals. Later on in this broadcast, we'll talk with a mother whose police officer's son was killed by an illegal alien with a criminal record, and he wasn't deported. So the absolute dereliction of duty on the part of all presidents and Congress is appalling. And we, the people, are suffering, along with the defenseless children. Talking Points will remind everyone that most illegal immigrants are good people. Most of them help the nation because they work hard. But 50% of all families headed by an immigrant receive some kind of welfare. And non-English speaking children put a tremendous strain on the public school system. Also, foreign gangs run criminal enterprises all over the USA. So illegal immigration certainly should be controlled. I put the solution to the problem on BillO'Reilly.com, and my plan would work. Bottom line, we need to stop illegal immigration into the USA cold. And that's the memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction. Joining us from Washington, Genevieve Wood from the Heritage Foundation, and from San Diego, Jason Rowe, former advisor to Mitt Romney. Mr. Rowe, surely Southern California has been greatly impacted by illegal immigration. What say you?
Well, yeah, it absolutely has. When I lived here in the 90s, you know, it felt like we were being overrun by people here illegally. But one thing that we did along the San Diego border that we haven't done across the rest of the southern border is strengthen our immigration control at the border and across San Diego County all the way to Arizona.
Yeah, and you've done it by putting up a fence. You put up a very big fence in the San Ysidro sector that it stopped it cold. And then you've made it very, very difficult for illegal traffic to come across in that sector, so they've moved to other places. So that's one part of the solution. The big fence, a double wide, as Charles Krauthammer said. In Israel, they managed to do it, okay? And we can do it here. But the will to do it isn't there, Mr. Rowe. Why not?
Well, and I think you're right. I mean, I think you've got a combination between the Latino Hispanic lobby and big business in terms of the workforce that we're importing here to do the jobs that a lot of Americans maybe don't want to do. You know, and I will tell you, after 9/11, George W. Bush could have implemented the most draconian policies in terms of border protection in the history of the world, and instead he decided to lead with a guest worker program, and I think that undermined the Republican Party. I think it undermined the will to do anything serious about border control.
Interesting.
But there hasn't been the political will to do the things that we need to do to secure the border.
Now, Ms. Wood, you've been down to the border, all right? And you heard my memo. Am I making any errors there? Am I distorting the situation at all, in your opinion?
No, I mean, I was in McAllen, Texas. I was down there covering it for the Daily Signal. And what I saw, and the people I talked to, Bill, the Border Patrol agents, the Texas Department of Public Safety, they all said we've never been overrun like this. And they did point to examples that you just pointed in Southern California saying, look, they've moved here because we've made it hard for them to get into other areas. But look, the fact is, I think one of the reasons we have this political shenanigans that we do is that people are almost told that you're somehow anti-immigrant, that you're inhumane if you want to secure the border. And that's just not true. I mean, the American people, this country, has done more in terms of aid to all parts of the world than any other country on the face of the earth. And it's important for people to remember we let in over 1 million legal immigrants into this country every year. Can we reform the system and make it better? Absolutely. And we ought to focus on that. But as you rightly said, you got to get a control of your border before you can tackle that system.
But President Bush didn't want to do it. President Obama doesn't want to do it. President Clinton didn't do it. Bush the Elder didn't do it. Certainly Ronald Reagan didn't do it because Ronald Reagan gave everybody amnesty, and on and on and on. So why won't any of these men who we elect to protect us primarily do it?
Well, I think it's because it's hard work. As you just have pointed out, politically, it's a hard thing to do because every time somebody says, I want to stop illegal immigration, people start screaming at them and saying how they're unfair and
racist,
this is a country of immigrants.
Anti-Hispanic, all of that.
That's right.
So they don't have the guts, is what you're saying, Ms. Wood. They don't have the guts to do it.
Many of them, that's exactly right.
All right, Mr. Rowe. Yeah, you're a Republican guy, and you know that the strain of the Republican Party wants to deport. This is the Laura Ingraham crew, okay? And I'm not saying that disparagingly to Ms. Ingraham or people who feel that way, and that's their honest opinion. They don't think that illegal people who break the civil law should be allowed to stay here and be rewarded, and there's certainly some validity to that. That's about, as we saw in the poll, 25%. And you got to put them all on the Republican side. There's no Democrats that feel that way. All right. So the Republican Party is going to have to deal with that split, is it not?
Well, yeah, I mean, I believe that it has been a problem for us, and we have alienated Hispanic voters nationally. I will say this, you know, when it comes to adults, that's one thing, because adults are consciously making this decision. But what we're talking about today is about children. You know, these children shouldn't become the political pawns in our failure to deal with our immigration problem and our border problems. And I don't subscribe to the view that we deport a bunch of children. I mean, an 8-year-old in Guatemala didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to go to a
but if you don't, if they don't have a valid
reason
for being here, that is, they're directly in harm's way. And most of them in the interviews the Border Patrol have done say they weren't. that they were put up here because their parents are poor and this is a better place. That I don't think we can assimilate all of them, because that sends a signal to everyone in the world: you get here, you stay here. Last word, Ms. Wood.
And I don't disagree with that, Bill. But sending them back is not the answer.
Well,
dealing
you
with
got one or two choices.
Is.
You let them stay, you send them back. Ms. Wood, last word.
Yeah, look, you get more of what you reward. And the fact is, everybody I talked to, the vast majority said they were coming here because they understood if they got in, they would be allowed to stay. And look, and we can reunite people. We can reunite with them with their families back in their home country. Many of them have parents living in the country, in the U.S. illegally. We can reunite them, but then we send them.
Each case has to be fairly.
Not allow everybody to stay.
Each case has to be fairly assessed. That's the
right.
kind of country we are. Ms. Wood, Mr. Rowe, thank you. Next on the Rundown, Lois Lerner, the IRS person who may have targeted conservative groups, embarrasses herself by some emails. Wait till you hear them. Later, Miller wants to meet face-to-face with Americans getting welfare money from him and other taxpayers. The Factor will be right back.